Hello everyone, my name is Lanso90 and welcome back to my tutorial series for Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. So in the last video we talked about the settings and options and we also installed the game. Now we're going to get into character creation. We'll go over to new character here. And we have a few options to pick from. Custom character is making your own character, which is definitely what we're going to be doing. Preset character lets you load a character that you've made with custom character. You can save the profile so you can load them up again if you wish. Random character, I believe that is... it creates a random character for you and then you can go back and change it if you wish. Play now fixed scenario is new. I haven't done this before, but I imagine it's for like specific like pre-made scenarios or something. And then play now I think is like random character, except you can't go back and change anything about them. You get put right into the game with the random character. But we're doing custom character. Oops, I think sorry. I did a test game. So we already had a world created, but we don't want that to be the case. So ignore that. Let's go back to new game. First time you press this, this is what it's going to bring up instead. This is your mod manager, so you can load up what mods you want. On the left is the ones you can add, on the right is the ones that are already installed. The core content of Dark Days Ahead is installed. They put filthy clothing in by default. Filthy clothing means clothing dropped by zombies will cause morale penalties and infect you if you're hit while you're wearing them. I do not know if turning this off gets rid of filthy clothing or if it just makes it so you get a morale penalty if this is on. I'm not sure of the specifics of how that functions. But we're going to leave it on. Disable NPC needs makes it so you don't have to feed or make sure your NPCs get water or sleep. Which is pretty useful because it's kind of an annoying thing to micromanage, making sure there's enough food for both you and an NPC. And simplified nutrition makes it so you don't have to micromanage your vitamin requirements. Which I could see a reason to turn this off for more realism. However, you could get in a scenario where the game's not giving you very much variety in your food, and then you're just kind of screwed. You just have to live with it. So I'm not going to go through every single mod here, but I will go talk about the ones we are going to add. We'll add craftable guns to the game. It says it breaks intended balance down here, but it actually doesn't really. In order to build a gun, you're going to need a lot of equipment first. Like, just to build a medieval weapon takes quite a lot of gear in this game. You have to get an anvil, you have to get a forge, you have to get all sorts of stuff. And by the time you have everything that you're going to need to be able to build guns, you're probably going to have your own small arsenal of modern guns anyway. We will go for makeshift items. This adds some more items that make survival easier at the start of the game. Or don't really make survival easier, it just makes it so there's more options of things you can build. That will definitely help a lot. And the same thing goes for survival tools. They basically do the same thing. We'll add both just in case one doesn't have what the other one has. You might want to add like NPC traits and mutant NPCs if you just want NPCs to be more detailed. It'll make it so they're more likely to be... they'll get traits and stuff like you do. And they might get mutated from radiation and everything, which could be interesting. Sometimes I consider more buildings just so there's more variety in the game. But for the sake of the tutorial series, I'm not going to put that one on. Because we may get something that may make the game too easy or something if we do it that way. I will grab the folding parts pack. This makes it so you can build some things that you can fold up so you can transport them easier. So we'll grab that. By the way, we're navigating this by just using arrow keys and pressing enter. If we want to get to the blacklist set of mods, because these are all separate kinds of mods you can add, you can press tab. And then you can disable certain things about the game if there's certain aspects about it that you don't like you can turn off the sci-fi stuff if you want. You can turn off the special types of zombies. You can turn off all zombies if you just want to have just like a generic survival game instead of a zombie survival game. That is an option. Go one more time over to balance. These two are already on. Zombie revivification. This one's weird. Like, it could be useful if it actually works, but it doesn't always work. Like, most zombies get included in this, but there'll be times where the game's been updated and they've added monsters, and then this mod didn't get updated. So then the new zombies aren't affected by the revivification mod, so I'd rather just leave it off and just smash all the bodies myself manually. Because zombies regenerate after you kill them, and that turns that off. Unless you smash the body. That's easy enough to do that, and here's our stats through skills 4, which we talked about. Put that on, so that we can level up our stats and our skills as we play the game. Alright, that's all the mods. Let's go to world options. You'll see that we've already set this before. You can set this over in the gameplay options category. I have been thinking about it, and I do think I want to lower our start time back to 8. So start in the morning. So that we could get more time to craft stuff at the start of the game. When there's still a lot of light outside, otherwise we're going to have issues. World name. By the way, we're pressing the shift, comma, and period keys to navigate this. It's the greater than, less than signs. Let's just randomize a world name. I don't think it, I mean, it might. I don't know one way or the other whether this is a world seed or not. I don't know if you get the same map if you use the same world name. But we'll do Friar's Point here. And then we just press greater than one more time and move forward. Alright, so here we are. In character creation. So here it has your system of how you want to spend your skill points. If you recall, when we were setting up our settings, we put 10 points for stats, 0 points for traits, and 10 points for skills. If you do multiple pools, you can only spend these in each of their categories. If you do single pool, you just get your entire supply of 20 points, which is the old-fashioned way the game used to play by default, but they changed it to multiple pools. And then there's also freeform, which is just, there's no limits put on you. We're going to do single pool. Lots of scenarios here. I think for the case of brevity, I'm not going to explain them. I was thinking I was going to explain every single one of them, but for tutorial purposes, I don't think that's necessary. You can read over these yourself to see what they do. Most of these are going to be a lot more difficult. I will go over just the ones that might be an option for you. Sheltered is an interesting one. You still start as a survivor like you do for evacuee. It limits your choices a little bit, it sounds like. You start in an enclosed shelter, so the enclosed shelter is way out in the middle of nowhere, even farther than the evac stations are in the game. So it's a very safe location. It has 2 floors, and when you're underground, like, nothing above ground happens. Like, time isn't simulated above ground, I think. So, like, if you're underground, you're like 100% safe from anything above ground. So it's a very safe location. The enclosed shelter is also cool because it has a bed and it has a wood stove, which are both things that are kind of hard to build. So it can be a very good start location. The thing is, it starts you in the winter start, which we talked about a little bit in the settings. A winter start means that the game has simulated time up till winter, so all the fresh food in the game will be rotten. And then the other thing is it's just very cold because it's winter. So you'll want to keep that in mind when you pick the start. But it does give you 3 points for a start location that's actually kind of easier than the evacuee location. If there was like one difference that would make me pick this all the time, is if you're an evacuee, you start in the evac station has a computer in it. And the computer produces its own light, so you can craft in nighttime if you're by the computer station. Shelter doesn't have a computer in it, so there's nothing producing light 24/7. You have to burn wood to see at night. Actually, you have to burn wood to see at all because you're underground. So that's the big difficulty with Sheltered, is it's a lot harder to craft because you can't see. Burning buildings is also something I would consider an option. You still get all the professions you can pick from. The start location is anywhere, so you can pick anywhere, or most places in the game. I don't think you can do literally anywhere. But you can pick most town locations, which means you can pick something like a library or a military surplus store. So you'll have access to like really good stuff at the start of the game that's kind of hard to get normally. Problem is the building is on fire, so you'll have to get out of the building in quite the hurry. And the other problem is, since most of them are in town, that means you're going to be running out into streets that are full of zombies. So that's the other difficulty with that one. But it does give you 2 more points for something that's not entirely hard. Helicopter crash might also be doable. I haven't tried this one in quite a while, and I think it's been reworked. I'd say it's doable because it gives you 2 points, and also starts you as a military recruit, which has a point value of +3. So you start with a very powerful class for free, as well as getting extra points here. You start in a crash site, which is like a crashed helicopter or something. So there might be military gear around you, and you just start with some wounds. Otherwise, this looks like it might be fairly doable. Wounds aren't that big of a deal to deal with. There's other stuff that is a huge deal to deal with, like infection. So if you see any of these that say you start infected, you don't want to do those. Those are extremely difficult to deal with. But yeah, this one could also be pretty doable. Mist is going to be like burning building, except the building just isn't on fire. But it's also worth 0 points. There's a few down here that start you just like out in the middle of nowhere. Wilderness, out of town, and the next summer. Just start you out in the middle of nowhere. And they don't cost that many points. Out of town costs a point, but the other 2 don't. The next summer, though, is going to make all the food's going to be rotten again. Same deal, the time gets simulated. I don't think those are really worth doing. You might as well do evacuee if you're going to do any of those. And the last interesting one to note is experiment. If you're wanting to do a game where you're a mutant, experiment will start you out with a bunch of mutations. We're going to do evacuee for tutorial purposes. Profession. I'm not going to go through all these because there's hundreds of thousands of them. But you can look through these to see if there's like a class you want to start with. It just changes your starting clothes and your starting skills. If you're trying to look for something that's good, if you do want to look through these, try to find a good example here. Look for something with a bunch of different skills. Just I'll use this guy for example. It's like pizza delivery boy. It costs you a point to take the class, but he has 4 points in driving skill, and we'll get to skills at the end here. But each point that you put in a skill, the first point gives you 2 points in that skill. So you can think about this as he has a driving skill of 4, so there's 1 point for 2 points of that, and then 3 and 4 are 1 point each. So that's 3 points of skills right there. You can't put just a half point into anything, so you can just say that this character probably is 4 points. So you pay 1 point, and then you get a character with 4 points of skills worth in them. So there is a way to get extra bang for your buck by picking a profession that's pretty good. I think the handyman costs 1 and he's only worth 1, so maybe not. But he does have a hammer and some pretty decent boots. You'll just want to look through that yourself and see if you see anything that's worth your time. But we're going to do Survivor for tutorial purposes. So here we are to traits. These are, you might call them perks or anything like that. They're special things about your character that change how they operate. I will go through all these because it's kind of important to talk about them. So, I will explain what they do and then whether or not I think they're worth it. So, Accomplished Sleeper makes it so you can fall asleep easier and in less than ideal circumstances. Most of the time you're going to be in... You should be able to get home and be in ideal circumstances to sleep. And as long as you've been active all day, your character should be sleepy. So, as long as you do those things, Accomplished Sleeper will not help you. So, it's not really that good. Addiction Resistant would help you if you're building a character who's going to use drugs a lot. Some people go for that kind of build because drugs can boost your stats. This will make it so you're less likely to get addicted to them, and you can get lose your addiction more easily. Animal empathy makes it so peaceful animals will not run away from you, and aggressive animals are less likely to attack. It only applies to wooden creatures, so this does not affect zombies. It's kind of lying about the aggressive animals are more likely to attack. They're still going to attack you. So this is generally not a great one, other than it could let you sneak up on peaceful creatures to hunt them easier. But not exactly critical. Cannibal will make it so eating people will not give you a morale penalty, or at least less of a morale penalty. However, this doesn't apply for zombies. Well, it might get rid of the morale penalty for eating zombies. However, eating zombie flesh is going to make you extremely sick, so it's not worth it. Also, this would also really mean that you can only eat... This music is too loud. Hold on. There's a song or two on the track that's like louder than the other ones. They're not normalized properly. So we'll do that. Okay, now I can think straight again. It'll mean you'll be able to eat NPCs, but killing NPCs will cost you a bunch of morale anyway. NPCs are also not that common, and just normal bodies spawning on the map can happen, but it's not very common, so cannibal is not really worth it. Death makes it so you recover from misses faster. I find this is pretty good at the start of the game when your character is not very good at hitting, because it means he'll miss a lot, so he'll have a lot more chances to recover from misses. So it's good at the start of the game, but at the end of the game it might not be as useful for you. Disease resistance makes it less likely that you'll catch ambient diseases like cold or flu. Can be pretty good because you do seem to catch the flu a lot in this game. Just because it rains a lot in this game, and it's kind of hard to not walk around in the rain. And if you get wet, you have like a pretty good chance of getting the flu, so it's kind of dumb. But that may be worth it. Drunken Master makes it so you gain the Drunken Master combat style, so if you're under the influence of alcohol, you're really good at melee combat, unarmed. It's an option if you're planning to do a silly kind of game like that. Fast Healer increases the amount that you heal when you sleep, and you can recover a small amount when you're not sleeping. My experience is that you recover enough health when you sleep to not need this. Like, sleeping will usually heal you up to 100%. Unless you're like really beat the fuck up, which you should be trying to avoid that. Fast Learner allows you to learn skills much faster. It only applies to real world experiences, it doesn't apply to books. This costs quite a bit, so it's probably not worth it, but it is a pretty powerful ability, so it may be worth it. Fast Reader makes it so you can read through books faster. It's decent. Costs 1 point. Fleet-footed makes it so you have a 15% move bonus on flat footing. This can be pretty good for running away from enemies, so I would recommend that one. Good Hearing, it makes your hearing better. The way that hearing works in this game is that things that are outside your line of sight will be in the fog of war, which is this black on your screen. And if there's a noise, there will be a little light up of like yellow question marks where the noise is coming from. If you have good hearing, it'll be more precise and it'll be from a bigger distance, I believe. But it's generally not that useful. We'll get more into hearing when we go over the negatives as well. So I wouldn't recommend that one. Good Memory makes it so the skill rest is weaker, but we have it set so skill rest is off, so the skill is actually useless to you. Gourmand allows you to eat more food and get more morale bonus from it. I don't think it's really worth it because you don't really want to eat more food. The morale bonus could help, but usually morale bonuses are not as good as avoiding morale penalties, which is going to be a running theme as we explain some of these positive and negative traits. Just keep that in mind, that negative penalties are a lot worse than positive bonuses. High Adrenaline. If you're in a very dangerous situation, your speed and strength increase significantly. Apparently this doesn't pop very often, and you have to be like almost dead for this to pop, so it's not useful because it's very rare for it to work and unreliable, so I would not do it. Indefatigable makes it so you get 25% more stamina. Can be useful, but not exactly critical. Infection Resistant makes you more likely to resist infections, and it increases the chance for infections to heal on their own. Could be useful because getting infected in this game really sucks, because it's really hard to deal with. So that could be useful. Less sleep. You need to sleep less than the average person. Now, something I've read is that this is a really recommended perk. However, from my experience, I kind of like our character to be on a fairly reliable sleep schedule. And this will mess that up, because your character will stay up, I don't know, 20 hours and sleep 4 hours, say. And that'll really make the times which your character is awake different every day. So I'm not sure that's worth it. I understand why they like it, but I don't like it. Your metabolism is slower with Light Eater. You require less food. Can be useful. Just not having to eat as much can be helpful, but not really super critical. It's usually easier to find food than it is to find water, so since that doesn't affect water, that's not really going to help you too much. Light Step makes it so you make less noise when you're walking and less likely to set off traps. Very good skill. Martial arts training. There's a few different types of martial arts training. I'm not going to read through everything that all the types of martial arts that they unlock. But if you want to do a melee class, you may want to consider one of the types of martial arts training. Masochist. You still suffer negative effects from pain, but you don't get the morale penalties, and in fact, you may get a morale bonus from it. I have not messed with it. Could be useful, but I'm not going to say very critical. Melee weapons training is going to be like martial arts training, but for handheld weapons. Night vision. You can see a lot better at night. This is a very good perk. Just for anyone, and then it's extra good for Let's Playing because you can see a lot more of the screen at night. This game is pretty bad to play for Let's Playing without night vision, because people can only see like one square around you. Or at least it used to be one square. I think they did expand it, but it used to be only one square around you, so it was a very dull experience to watch someone play this at night. But it is a very good perk anyway. Optimist. It'll maybe like a 5% bonus to your morale at all times. It's a very small bonus, so it's not really that good. Outdoorsman, it decreases the morale penalty for being wet. Normally I don't take this, but lately it seems like the penalty for being wet is a lot higher than it used to be. So I'm starting to think about taking this, to be honest with you. Pack Mule lets you carry 40% more volume. Your inventory space is primarily determined by volume of items. It's not really determined by weight. There's both in the game, but volume is going to limit you most of the time, so 40% more volume is pretty dang good. But I do believe it only affects your starting, or like your base carry capacity. I do not think it actually covers like the backpacks and things you put on, which makes it not quite as valuable as it could be. But I could be wrong about that, but I feel like I read that recently. Pain resistant, you have a higher tolerance for pain. It could be useful. Pain sucks, but not exactly super critical. Parkour expert allows you to move through difficult terrain just as easily as normal terrain. Difficult terrain usually makes you move at like twice the speed that it takes to get through it, so enemies can catch up to you faster if you have to move through it. It can be pretty good to get away from enemies and to get them stuck on obstacles themselves, which makes it easier to kill them. Poison resistant makes you more resistant to poisons and toxins. I'm going to say not that worth it because they don't come into play very often. Pretty will make NPCs easier to work with, not very helpful. Psychopath will make it so you don't get penalties to your morale for guilt. Usually that comes in the form of killing NPCs and for killing child zombies. Can be useful. The problem with the NPCs attacking you, like NPCs can attack you for no reason sometimes. And if you're gonna beat them, the thing is you're really gonna have to attack them first to make sure that you can beat them. And what that'll mean is because you attacked first, it'll be considered killing an innocent person. So unless you let them hit you once, you're gonna have a big morale penalty for getting in a fight with NPCs. So you may want to consider this for that kind of reason, because it is like a massive penalty if you kill an innocent person. It's like 100. It's like 100 points, which is an insane amount. But yeah, because the alternative is they might have like a shotgun, So the first time they're gonna attack you, it might one-shot kill you. So you almost always have to attack them first, even if they're, knowing what the penalty is gonna be. So there is reasons to pick this, but it's not exactly something that happens a lot, so you may be able to pass on it. Quick just gives you a flat 10% speed bonus to everything. Can be pretty good. Robust genetics, if you're playing a game where you're going to be mutating a lot, you'll want to take this, because it increases the chance that mutations are going to be positive, which is great if you're doing that, but if you're not doing that, it's not really worth it. Scout increases your overmap sight radius, which can be useful, but you can also find binoculars to do the same thing. I do not know if they stack. I think they do, but it's not really that critical. Self-aware makes it so you can see your exact amount of HP remaining rather than just having a health bar. I actually kind of like the health bars more than having a number, but if you would prefer to see your exact amount of health, you may want to turn that on. Self-decleansed classes is another kind of melee training. Shaolin Adept, same deal. Skilled Liar will make it easier to interact with NPCs. Not really that critical usually. Spiritual is you can get a morale bonus from spiritual books in the game. Probably not that critical. I don't know how big of a bonus it is, but like I talked about, morale bonuses aren't as good as avoiding morale penalties, so not really that critical. Strong back is like Pack Mule, except it's for weight. Like I talked about, though, weight capacity doesn't really matter as much as volume capacity. It's not really that useful. Strong stomach makes you less likely to throw up from food poisoning and alcohol, and so on. It's usually pretty easy to avoid that happening, so not really worth it. Stylish will make it so you get a morale bonus for wearing fancy clothes. It's a very small bonus, so I don't think it's worth it. You can handle intoxicants well, so if you're wanting to play a druggy character, you'll want to take this. It makes their negative effects clear up faster. Terrifying makes wooden critters more likely to run away from you. From my experience, this does not affect aggressive creatures, so it's not going to scare away anything that's dangerous. And the other stuff that does get scared away from it, you don't really want to run away because you want to be able to hunt them and stuff, so it's actually kind of a bad perk. And it doesn't affect zombies. Thick Skin reduces cutting damage for you, and it slightly decreases wet penalties. This is one that I usually say skip, but like I said, the wet penalties seem to be a lot worse than they used to be, so you might want to think about this one, especially if you combine it with Outdoorsman. Tough just gives you a flat 20% bonus to all your hit points. Pretty good. Tough Feet is pretty useless. It makes it so you don't get penalties for being barefoot. Not very helpful. It's pretty easy to avoid that. Venom Mob is another kind of martial arts. And Weak Scent reduces your scent profile, because apart from sight and vision, there's also a scent system in the game where creatures can smell you. So this can be fairly useful. We're about out of time for this video, so we will go through negative traits in the next one. I hope y'all enjoyed, and have a good day.